The discharge of charge application process is initiated by a registered advocate, and the registered advocate must also be registered on the ArdhiSasa platform. To begin with, you log into the platform. As an advocate, you'll be required to enter your credentials, that is the identification number or the ArdhiSasa ID, and the password you used when creating your account. Key in your ArdhiSasa ID as an advocate, enter your password, and then click Continue. Upon doing so, you'll be provided with a one-time password code, an OTP, which will be sent to the phone number you used to register with on the platform. Once you have received the OTP, type the code onto the OTP prompt box and then click Log In. You'll be navigated to the dashboard. On your dashboard, you will find a number of services listed under the several departments we have in the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning. As an advocate, when you first log in, the account you are logged in as is your private account. For you to perform a discharge of charge application, you will need to switch to your advocate account, so you do so by clicking on the profile icon. It will display a drop-down menu with the professional account which has been approved for you as an advocate. Switch to your advocate account and you'll be able to proceed and initiate a discharge of charge application. For more information on how to upgrade to a professional account, check out our YouTube video on how to upgrade your account. The discharge of charge application is under the charge, which is one of the various services offered under land registration, as you can see. So we'll proceed and click on charge. There are a number of services offered under this process, beginning with a charge, consent for second or subsequent charge, discharge of charge, informal charge, memorandum of variation of charge, transfer of charge, and finally the partial discharge of charge. Our tutorial is going to be based on the discharge of charge, so we will proceed and click on discharge of charge. Upon doing so, you'll be navigated to the applications page, and under the applications page, there are a number of tabs provided. We have 5 tabs, namely pending, ongoing, completed, rejected, and cancelled. All the discharge of charge services that you have initiated as an advocate will be listed among the tabs provided, depending on the level of your application. The pending tab is for the application that you have initiated as an advocate but have not completed. It or they still need some action from your side or from the parties involved in the discharge of charge application. The ongoing tab features discharge of charge applications which you have completed as an advocate, but it's up to the ministry side through the relevant officials to do their part. The completed tab is for discharge of charge applications which you have completed as an advocate and have been approved by the relevant ministry officials. The rejected tab is for discharge of charge applications that have been rejected by the ministry officials for one reason or another. And the cancel tab is for discharge of charge applications which have been cancelled by the different parties involved in the discharge of charge application process. For you to initiate a discharge of charge application as an advocate, you will click on the new application button on the top right hand corner of your screen. When you click on the new application button, you'll be navigated to the page with FAQs, which is the frequently asked questions related to the discharge of charge application. You can go ahead and explore the FAQs to get some of the terminologies used in the discharge of charge application process. When you're satisfied with the FAQs, you can proceed and click on Next. You'll then be navigated to the discharge of charge details section. Under this section, you'll first be required to input the principal amount that was secured for the charge you intend to discharge, and you will also select the appropriate currency. In our case, we'll use Kenya shillings. You'll then proceed to the parcel details section, where you'll first key in the parcel number. So kindly key in the parcel number following the format registry /block and then the block number without any space in between /the parcel number. Kindly note that the ArdhiSasa platform only accepts parcel numbers keyed in using this format, and thus be careful not to do the contrary. In the next field, you'll be required to input the charge entry number as is featured in the register. In this field, you can provide more than one entry number if you are discharging more than one charge. For instance, you could be discharging a charge and a further charge, so we'll go ahead and input the entry numbers, and each time you enter a number, tap on the enter button before entering another entry number. Also, it is key to note that if more than one parcel was used to secure the charge which you intend to discharge, You can proceed and key in the additional parcel or parcels using the same format. You'll then enter the entry number and then click on the Add button, and the parcels will be listed underneath the text boxes. In our case, only one parcel was used to secure the charge, so we'll list that particular parcel only. After the charge details, you are required to provide the Chargor details. To begin with, you have the field where you will need to input the ArdhiSasa ID of the Chargor. Hence, the Chargor should have already provided you with his or her ArdhiSasa ID at this point. After entering the ArdhiSasa ID of the Chargor, you will click on Search. Upon doing so, you will receive a pop-up box requiring you to choose the category of person to execute as the Chargor. There are two categories. First, the Chargor can execute on his or her own behalf, or an attorney can execute on behalf of a Chargor. If it is an attorney executing on behalf of a Chargor, you'll select attorney, then you'll be required to provide the power of attorney entry number, so kindly key it in the format registry / the entry number / the month of registration / the year of registration, and then click on search. Once you search, the name of the attorney will appear underneath the search bar along with the ArdhiSasa ID of the attorney. If there is more than one attorney acting or executing on behalf of the Chargor, you can key in the power of attorney entry number of the second attorney in the same format and then click on search. The name of the second attorney will also appear underneath the search bar along with the ArdhiSasa ID. If the ArdhiSasa ID does not appear, it means the attorney is transacting for the first time. As such, you will also be required to input the ArdhiSasa ID of the second attorney. Once you are done entering the entry numbers of the attorneys, you can click on Save, and the attorneys will be listed against the Chargor. For the purpose of our demonstration, we'll go with the self option instead, which means that the Chargor is executing on his or her own behalf, and then click on Save. Upon clicking on Save, the Chargor will be listed, and beside the Chargor, we have the person executing on behalf of the Chargor. In this case, the Chargor is executing for himself. You can then proceed to the Chargee details section, where you'll be required to provide the ArdhiSasa ID of the Chargee. If it's a bank, you'll provide the ArdhiSasa ID of the bank. Kindly proceed and input the ArdhiSasa ID of the bank, and then click on Search. Upon doing so, you'll get a pop-up box requiring you to select the category of the person to execute as the Chargee. Under the Chargee, there are two categories of people. It could be a director or an attorney. If the Chargee is a company, you'll be required to provide the ArdhiSasa ID of the director. So kindly key in the director's ArdhiSasa ID and then click on Search. The details of the director will be listed below the search bar of the pop-up box, and then you can go ahead and click on Save. Alternatively, you can proceed with the attorney option, and thus you'll need to provide the power of attorney entry number. So kindly key in the number in the format registry / the entry number / the month of registration / the year of registration, and then click on Search. The name of the attorney will be listed underneath the search box along with his or her ArdhiSasa ID. Kindly proceed to clicking Save. Under the Chargee details section, you will see the name of the Chargee, and you will also see the person executing on behalf of the Chargee. In this case, it is an attorney. Once you are satisfied with the Chargee details, you can proceed to the borrower details, where you will be required to key in the ArdhiSasa ID of the borrower. It is also key to note that the Chargor could be the borrower or a totally different person from the Chargor. So kindly input the ArdhiSasa ID of the borrower. In this case, the Chargor and the borrower is the same person, so I'll input the ArdhiSasa ID of the Chargor and then click on Search. You'll get a pop-up box requiring you to select the category of the person to execute as the borrower. It can either be the borrower executing on his or her own behalf or using an attorney. So if you choose the attorney option, you'll be required to enter the power of attorney entry number and then click on Search. If it's the borrower executing on his or her own behalf, as is the case in this, you will click on Self and then click on Save. Once you do so, you'll get the name of the borrower as well as the person executing for the borrower listed. After that, you can go ahead and click on Next, where you'll be navigated to the Additional Details section. Under the Additional Details section, we first have the Whereas details. This particular section will require you to input the whereas details that will be contained in the discharge of charge. So you will key in your whereas details, and after doing so, you will click on the add button and the details will appear alongside the text box. You will then navigate downwards to the law firm details and enter the law firm details of the law firm applying for the discharge of charge, or the law firm that the advocate making the application is acting under. First off, provide the name of the law firm. Also provide the physical address of the law firm. You'll also provide the postal address of the law firm. You'll also provide the street address of the law firm, if applicable. You'll also enter the phone number of the law firm. You'll also enter the email address of the law firm. And lastly, you'll provide the website of the law firm, if applicable. The last section under the additional details is the stamp duty details section. Under this section, you'll be required to select on whether to apply for exemption of stamp duty or not. Exemption of stamp duty is guided by an act or a legal notice, so you'll apply for the exemption of stamp duty payment depending on the legal clause that the stamp duty payment will fall under. So we have a number of options offered. The default section, as you can see, is section 17, but you have an option of providing another section that is applicable to your application for exemption of stamp duty. If you click on other option, you'll be required to enter the section and the chapter under which the exemption is sought. If you are seeking exemption under legal notices, you'll be required to enter the legal notice number and also enter the date of the legal notice. So for the purpose of this demonstration, we will not be applying for stamp duty exemption, so we'll click on No Exemption. A key aspect to note is that the stamp duty fee will be auto-calculated and an invoice will be generated and provided to the parties involved, either of whom can pay for the stamp duty. So after you have filled the stamp duty details, you'll proceed and click on Next. The next section is the document section. This is where you'll be required to provide the additional provisions, and you can also provide the additional documents which you feel will support the application of the discharge of charge. So go ahead and click on Choose File, and you'll be navigated to your local machine or device, whereby you'll upload the documents you have prepared, and the document will be listed against the Choose File button. If you have additional documents which you feel will support the discharge of charge application, you have an option of providing those documents. For example, if you are seeking for stamp duty exemption under the legal notices, you may provide the necessary documents supporting so. If you are satisfied with the documents you have submitted to facilitate the discharge of charge application process, you can proceed and click on Next. The last step is the confirmation step with all the details that you have provided. So scroll through the entire page and go through the details that you have provided. If satisfied with the details provided, you can click on Submit. You also have an option of going back if you need to edit any information. For this case, we'll proceed and click on Submit. You'll be prompted to approve on whether you indeed want to submit the request, and then proceed and click on Yes. You'll then get a confirmation message on a pop-up box which affirms that the application has been created successfully, and then click on Close. So after you have submitted your application, the next step is for the parties involved to consent or reject to the discharge of charge application. They'll receive an SMS and an email notification informing them of the active discharge of charge application, and it will also prompt them to log into their ArdhiSasa accounts and verify the application. The parties involved will individually log into their personal accounts, and once they're in, they will navigate to the notification bell on the top right-hand corner of the screen and check for the notification, and they can consent or reject the application depending on the reasons they have. A key thing to note is that you can view the progress level of your application on the progress bar, as is featured on the upper section of your screen upon submission of your application. After the application verification section, we have the execution section, where you accept whether or not to represent the parties listed. So if you as an advocate choose to accept to represent all the parties involved, you will click on Accept, and if you wish not to represent one or all of the parties involved, you can click on Reject, and the parties involved will get a notification that you have rejected to represent them, and they will have an option of selecting or adding another advocate to represent them. In our case, we'll choose to accept to represent all the parties involved. Once you have accepted or executed on this, you can proceed and append your signature as an advocate. However, in our case, the advocate will hold out on appending his or her signature until the parties involved have verified and signed on the application. It is key to note that the advocate must be in communication with the parties involved throughout the verification process for ease of operations. As such, once any of the parties has logged in, he or she will navigate to the notification bell on the top right-hand corner of the screen and check for the notification prompting him or her to verify the application. An OTP prompt box will be displayed with the Get OTP button alongside it. If he or she does not approve of this process, a Cancel Application button will be displayed on the top right-hand corner of the screen, and he or she can then click on it and the process will be cancelled. However, if the individual is aware of the process and approves of it, he or she will then click on the Get OTP button and an OTP code will be sent to the phone number that he or she used during registration. A key thing to note is that below the OTP prompt box, there is an important disclaimer for the party involved. It instructs him or her to only enter the OTP code if he or she authorizes the application made on his or her own behalf by the advocate involved in the process. After receiving the OTP code, the individual will then navigate to the browser that he or she had logged into the ArdhiSasa platform with. The individual will then key in the exact code received onto the OTP prompt box and then click on the Verify button. Upon doing so, a pop-up box will appear affirming that the OTP has been successfully verified, so he or she will go ahead and click on Close. Below the OTP verification section, there is the Execution section. Here, the party verifying this application can change the advocate representing him or her if the initial advocate rejected representation. The individual will then navigate to the Add Signature section, where he or she will be required to append their signature. There are a number of options on how to append your signature. To begin with, there is a blank space here, as you can see, which allows you to sign with your computer mouse if you are using a desktop or a laptop, and alternatively with a stylus pen or your index finger if you are using a phone or tablet to access the platform. You also have the other option of signing with another device. When you click on this option, a pop-up box will appear displaying 4 alternative options for signing. For more information on the available signing options on ArdhiSasa, kindly view our YouTube video explaining the same through the link featured in the video description. In this case, the individual will sign on the blank space. He or she will place the mouse cursor on the blank space, press and hold the left click button, and then go ahead and append the signature. If satisfied with the signature, he or she can click on Save. However, if not pleased with it, there is the option of removing it by clicking on Clear, and then appending the signature once again to their liking. If satisfied with it, he or she will click on Save. As mentioned earlier, the advocate and the parties involved are in active communication during the verification process. As such, once the parties involved have done their bit, the advocate will be notified and he or she will then navigate to the application status page and refresh it. So once all the parties involved in the Discharge of Charge application have consented, for you as an advocate on your screen under the application verification section, you'll see the status on verification by the involved parties under the OTP status, and you'll also see the signature status as well, and in our case, they have all verified and signed. As you can recall, the advocate held out on signing earlier on until the parties involved had verified and signed on the application. With them having verified and signed, you, the advocate, can go ahead and append your signature. You can then sign on the signing pad area featured using your mouse and click on Save. The second option is signing using another device using the 4 aforementioned options. So proceed and append your signature and then click on Save. There's a pop-up notification that will appear requiring you to affirm that you want to submit this as your signature. Click on Yes. In doing so, you'll have completed the application up to the point of accepting execution and the parties involved consenting to the Discharge of Charge application. Once you complete your part as an advocate and all the parties are verified and signed, an invoice will be auto-generated requiring you or either one of the involved parties to pay the full stamp duty unless you had applied for an exemption. If you had applied for an exemption of the same and have been approved for it by the collector of stamp duties, you will receive an invoice requiring you or either one of the involved parties to pay a nominal fee. To view the invoice on the Invoice tab, kindly click on View and 2 options will be displayed. you have the invoice and the receipt. The receipt option is not active until the stamp duty is paid. So if you click on invoice, you'll be provided with the invoice that has been generated. As you can see, this particular invoice is unpaid. You will also be provided with an invoice number, one that you should take note of as you make the payment. Kindly navigate back to the invoice tab, and when you click on pay, you will be provided with available options for payment as well as the procedures to be used. Once the payment is made, a confirm button will appear on the bottom left hand corner. Kindly click on confirm and then click on the OK button on the top. Upon doing so, the submit request button on the top right hand corner is activated and you'll be able to submit your discharge of charge application. A pop-up notification will appear requiring you to affirm on whether or not you want to submit the request. In our case, we'll proceed and click on yes, and there will be another pop-up notification confirming that your discharge of charge application has been successfully submitted, and then click on close. Your application status then changes from pending to ongoing, and at this point, your role as an advocate in this process is complete, and it's now up to the ministry officials involved in the discharge of charge application process to act on the application. When you view the application that you have submitted, you'll be able to see the progress bar, which details how far along your application is. In our case, it is 60% complete. At every point when an action is made to the discharge of charge application by the ministry staff, you'll get a notification. Whether or not the application is approved or rejected, you'll get a notification detailing the same. That's it for this tutorial on how to make a discharge of charge application on ArdhiSasa. Feel free to give feedback on this tutorial in the comment section below. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell button alongside the subscribe button to get notifications on new videos as and when we post them. Thanks for watching and goodbye.